I stared at the freshly printed canvas hanging above my mother's fireplace. The colors were soft and golden, taken during sunset. Everyone was smiling, the entire family in coordinated pastel clothes. My father had his arm around my younger sister, Nina, while my mom clutched a bouquet of lilies, her favorite. Even the dog, Toby, wore a matching bandana, but I wasn't in it. They had replaced me, not cropped me out. Not accidentally forgotten me, they replaced me. Standing in my place was Nina's new fiancé, Jacob. A man I had never even met. He wore the exact shade of lavender I wore in the original photo. Same background. Same pose. Same light. But a different smile, like I had never existed. My throat tightened. I felt the crack in my chest widen. They hadn't even told me they were updating the family photo. They hadn't told me anything at all for almost a year. And now, I was just a memory. No, worse. An erasure. That was the moment I knew I would never belong to them again. But I also knew something they didn't, while they were busy posing in front of the perfect little house with white shutters and a rose garden out front. I had just bought the house right behind them. And I wasn't there to wave hello, I was there to watch, because secrets rot in pretty homes, and this family was about to remember exactly who I am. Growing up, I always thought my family was close. Every Sunday, we had homemade pasta dinners. We played board games on rainy nights and watched cheesy holiday movies in matching pajamas. I was the oldest of three, responsible, obedient, the overachiever with straight A's and a spotless college record, but behind our polished family photos was a hidden hierarchy, and I never realized I was disposable. Until I said no. It all started the day I refused to give my sister my savings. She wanted help buying a wedding venue. I wanted to keep the down payment for my first apartment. That one no changed everything. The calls stopped, the family group chat went silent, and then came the wedding invitation addressed to a Mr. and Mrs. Carter and family. Not to me, they didn't expect me to show up, so I didn't, but that wasn't the end, not even close, because I had a plan, and it started with a house, not just any house, the house behind theirs. My name is Eliza Carter, and for most of my life, I believed in two things: that family meant forever. That if I worked hard enough, I could earn anything: love, trust, even belonging, but both turned out to be lies. I grew up in a modest two-story house tucked in the outer edges of the suburbs. It was the kind of place where neighbors brought over banana bread in Tupperware, where wind chimes clinked in every backyard, and where lawns were mowed in perfect synchrony on Saturday mornings. Everything about it looked safe. Perfect, even to my parents, Mark and Donna Carter, were both school teachers. Practical people. Rule followers. My dad taught high school chemistry. My mom, elementary art. They married young, worked hard, and raised us with that Midwestern mix of warmth and tough love. There were three of us siblings: me, the eldest, the reliable one. The one who always had her homework done, who stayed out of trouble, who didn't complain when I was passed over for things because Nina needed it more. Then came Thomas, my younger brother, quiet and good with his hands. He became a mechanic. Lived his life in the garage or under a car. We were never particularly close, but we weren't distant either. We just coexisted, like furniture in the same house. And then there was Nina, the youngest. The golden child. She had this way of walking into a room and becoming the center of gravity. Blonde hair always curled perfectly, her voice just soft enough to make people lean in. Nina wasn't cruel, at least not directly. Her specialty was gentle manipulation. She knew how to cry without tears, how to act fragile until someone, usually me, swooped in to fix things for her. Growing up, I didn't mind. I was the big sister. That's what big sisters did until one day, I couldn't anymore. I got into college on a partial scholarship and worked 3 jobs to cover the rest. While Nina was being gifted cars for her 16th birthday and skipping summer classes to go to music festivals, I was folding clothes at a mall store, tutoring freshmen, and taking online classes late into the night. When I finally graduated as first in my family to do so, no one came to the ceremony. They said it was too far. Too expensive. But I saw the photos 2 weeks later of them at Nina's boyfriend's family barbecue in the Hamptons that same weekend. Matching sundresses. Happy smiles. Captioned, "Family First." I stared at the picture for almost an hour. That's when the quiet ache in my chest began to harden into something else. After college, I landed a decent job at a marketing firm in the city. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough to let me start saving for a place of my own. I rented a small apartment, no windows, paper-thin walls, smelled like curry and cigarette smoke, but it was mine. Every dollar I earned, I tucked away. I didn't splurge. I didn't travel. While my coworkers were getting eyelash extensions and espresso machines, I was eating canned soup and researching real estate. I had one goal: to buy a home of my own by 30. My parents knew about this dream. I talked about it every Christmas, every phone call. They nodded, encouraged me, barely. And yet, every time Nina needed something, they asked me to give it up, just lend her a little. She's your sister. You know she's not as strong as you, Liz. Strong? Is that what they called it when you never cried in front of them, when you learned to silence your own needs just to keep the peace, when you were the one always apologizing first? The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I was sitting in my apartment, going over listings. My down payment fund had finally hit $48,000. I was close. So close that that's when Mom called. "Eliza, honey," she began, that sugary tone that always meant she was about to ask for something. "Your sister's wedding is coming up, and she's in a bit of a bind." I didn't say anything. Just waited. She and Jacob found the perfect venue. It's a little over their budget, but she's heartbroken, Liz. She cried all night. Still, I said nothing. Then, I told her I'd talk to you. Just a temporary loan. $10,000. You've been saving, haven't you? My throat tightened. $10,000? She'll pay you back. Eventually. She's never paid me back, I whispered. Not once. Silence. Then, defensively, "Don't make this about the past. It's her big day. Families support each other." That was the moment I snapped. "No, Mom. I support you. I always have. But I'm done. This money is mine. I earned it. I'm not giving it to Nina so she can have a fancier gazebo and champagne flutes." The pause on the other end was sharp, like a blade. Then, in a tone I hadn't heard from my mother before, cold, clipped, "You've changed." And with that, she hung up. 3 weeks later, I got a wedding invitation in the mail, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was sent to a Mr. and Mrs. Carter and family. Like I was some footnote that an outsider. I never replied, and no one followed up. Not Mom. Not Nina. Not even Thomas. The day of the wedding came and went. I tried to stay busy. I went to a movie alone. Took myself out to dinner. Pretended not to check Instagram every 30 minutes, but eventually, I saw the photos, dozens of them. Nina in a white lace gown, tears in her eyes. My parents, beaming. Jacob holding her hand, even. The dog was there. Me, nowhere. I was invisible. Weeks passed. I buried myself in work, until one morning, I got a text from an old neighbor back home. "Look what your mom just posted. So sweet." Attached was a photo, the same one I saw later on the canvas above the fireplace, that staged family portrait. Shot in golden hour, with Jacob standing exactly where I had once stood in the original version taken years ago. Same outfits. Same pose, but this time, I was gone. He had replaced me. The anger didn't come all at once. It built slowly, like steam under a closed lid, but then one night, I couldn't sleep. I sat up scrolling through real estate listings. Not in the city. Not near work. Back home, something had shifted. I was done begging to be seen. If they didn't want me in the family, fine, but I would never let them forget me. That's when I saw a listing for a small colonial house. Right behind theirs. Same block. Same view of the street. Just through the row of hedges behind their rose garden. It was a fixer-upper. Needed a new roof. The kitchen looked like it hadn't been touched since 1972. But it was within reach. Just barely. My fingers trembled as I stared at the screen. It felt like fate. I called the agent that night. 3 weeks later, it was mine. I didn't tell anyone. I moved in quietly. Hired local contractors to come by during working hours when they were at school or out for errands. Every day, I'd walk into the backyard, coffee in hand, and stare through the slits in the hedges at the house I once called home, at the family. Who used to be mine at first? It was curiosity then. I started noticing things. My father going on long drives without telling anyone. My mom whispering on the phone behind the garage. Nina crying in her car. Alone. At night, and one day, when I watched them having a barbecue, I noticed Jacob's phone light up, and the name on the screen wasn't Nina. Something wasn't right. Secrets rot in pretty homes, and this family had more than one. I didn't plan on getting involved, but I couldn't look away. They thought I was gone, forgotten, but I was right there, watching, listening, waiting, because if they thought they could erase me from the photo, they were about to learn. You can't delete someone who knows where the bodies are buried. First-person POV, emotional, suspenseful, visual tone. I never meant to spy on them, at least, not at first, but curiosity has teeth. It gnaws slowly until you either feed it, or it consumes you. It started with something simple, a letter. One day, as I was grabbing packages from my front step, I noticed an envelope half stuck under my doormat. It wasn't addressed to me. In fact, it had no address at all, just the words, "To whom it may concern." Inside was a single piece of paper. Unfolded neatly. Typed. "Your perfect little family has cracks. He's not who he says he is. She knows. She's just too scared to say it. Check the shed behind the Carter house." No signature. No return address, just that. I froze, staring at the paper. The shed. I hadn't thought about that place in years. As kids, we used to dare each other to go inside. Dad always kept it padlocked, claiming it was full of tools and dangerous stuff. But I remembered the creaky floorboards, the musty smell of old wood and oil, and that one broken window that never got fixed. And now, after all these years, I was being told to go back. That night, I waited until the neighborhood slipped into its usual 10 p.m. hush. I wore black, kept my footsteps silent as I crossed through the hedges between my yard and theirs. My heart pounded so loud it echoed in my ears. The shed looked the same. Tilted slightly to one side, like it had aged along with the house. The padlock was gone. Strange. I slowly pushed the door open. It creaked like something out of a horror movie. Dust motes danced in the beam of my phone flashlight, and then I saw it. Boxes labeled. Dated. Stacked neatly. Not tools. Not yard supplies, just paper, bank statements, insurance files. A folder labeled, premarital agreements, Jacob Reynolds. I froze. Why would my parents have Jacob's prenup? My fingers shook as I flipped through the documents. There were payment receipts, too. From my dad. Monthly deposits made out to a woman I didn't recognize, S. Mendez. And then, tucked in the very back of the folder, photos, grainy. Dated, Jacob, with a different woman over and over. Different places. Same woman, same timestamp, during the time he and Nina were supposedly a long distance. My stomach twisted. He had been cheating on her for years, but why was this in the shed? Why did Dad have all this? Why didn't Nina? I started taking photos of everything, every document, every line, every name, just in case. Then I heard it, footsteps, close. Someone was coming. I killed my flashlight, backed into the shadows, barely breathing. A figure passed by the window, a man, not Jacob. Dad. I crouched lower, heart in my throat. He unlocked the front door to the house. Unaware of how close I'd been, I stayed frozen in place for nearly 10 minutes before daring to move. When I finally made it back home, I bolted the door, dropped the phone, and sat on the floor in shock. My mind was a blur of questions. Was Dad protecting Jacob? Was Mom in on it? Did Nina know and just accept it? And what about this mysterious letter? Who sent it? Why me? I spent the next morning combing through the photos I'd taken. Every receipt, date, file. I cross-checked bank names. Found a small credit union that Jacob's monthly deposits came from, but the biggest shock was still waiting. That night, I created a throwaway email and messaged S. Mendez. Her info had been in one of the scanned receipts. I kept it simple. I know about you and Jacob. I think we need to talk. I didn't expect a response, but I got one. Less than an hour later. Meet me at Florence Cafe. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Come alone. I hardly slept that night. The next morning, I sat in a corner booth at the cafe, hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had long since gone cold. At 10:05, she walked in, Sofia Mendez, mid-30s. Smart eyes. Dressed plainly, but everything about her screamed control. Not the kind of woman who got caught up in drama. She slid into the seat across from me and said, without hesitation, "You're Eliza." I nodded slowly. "And you're the woman your sister's fiancé promised to marry 2 years ago." I stared at her, stunned. He told me he was ending things with Nina. Said she was unstable. Said he needed time. Then he ghosted me and married her instead. A few months later, I started getting money from my dad. I whispered. She nodded. I didn't know at first. I assumed it was Jacob, feeling guilty. But then I traced the account. "It's your father's. He paid me off. Told me never to come near your family again. That he'd ruin me if I did." The room swam a little. Sofia leaned in. So I stayed quiet. Until now. Why now? Because I found out Jacob's still seeing someone on the side. Another woman. Not me. And I figured, if he was going to keep playing games, maybe it was time everyone knew. I sat there, gripping the edge of the table. Everything was unraveling, every photo on their mantle, every lie they told. My sister had married a liar. My parents were covering it up, and someone watching from the shadows, wanted it all to explode. Then Sofia reached into her bag and pulled out a small USB. "What's this?" She smiled, just slightly. "Proof." But before I could ask anything else, the windows shattered, glass rained down, people screamed that a brick had been thrown straight through the cafe window. On it, a note, "Stop digging." After the brick came crashing through the cafe window, everything in my world shifted. Sofia and I hit the ground in unison, hands over our heads, hearts pounding. The glass had sprayed across the floor like crystal shrapnel. I tasted copper in my mouth. I'd bitten my tongue. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They swept in with flashlights and notebooks, asking questions I couldn't answer. Sofia was calm, practiced. She told them it was probably a disgruntled ex, or random vandalism. But her eyes met mine once, and I knew we were both thinking the same thing. Someone was watching us, someone who didn't want the truth out. Back at home, I locked every door and window. I pulled down the blinds. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I stared at the USB Sofia had slipped me before chaos erupted. I hesitated, then plugged it into my laptop. Inside were folders labeled by month. Videos. Screenshots. Emails. The first video opened with a shaky frame. A woman, Nina, was yelling that it was taken from across the street. The audio was faint, but I recognized her voice immediately. The kind she used when she was scared and furious. All at once she was standing outside their house, crying, screaming at Jacob. "You said she meant nothing. You told me it was over." Jacob didn't yell back. He just stood there, arms crossed, cold as stone. That was dated 6 months ago. So she did know. Or at least, suspected. I opened another folder. More footage. Emails from Jacob's secondary account to different women. It wasn't just Sofia. There were 3 others, and one of the names was a teacher at my mom's school. I recoiled. How deep did this go? The next morning, I tried to call Nina, straight to voicemail. I wasn't sure what I would have said anyway. "Hey, it's your invisible sister. Thought you should know your husband is cheating and our dad's covering it up."
Yeah.
That would go over well, but something pulled me toward the house. I sat in my upstairs bedroom, staring through the gap in the hedges with binoculars. It was like my own private window into a soap opera. That's when I saw it. Thomas is my quiet, stay out of it brother, arguing with Dad on the porch. He rarely even spoke in family fights. But this time, he was shouting. I cracked open the window and strained to hear, not going to keep lying for him. Thomas barked. Dad's voice was lower, but sharp. "You're not going to destroy this family over gossip. Jacob made mistakes. We all do. Mistakes? He's cheating on Nina. And paying off women to stay quiet. Not your concern, Tom. Your sister's happy. Don't go digging graves that don't need to be opened. Thomas took a step back, his chest heaving. You're unbelievable. Then he stormed off. Thomas knew, and now I had an ally. That night, I sent him an anonymous text from a burner app and meet me behind the green shed at 9. Come alone. He showed up. Of course he did. Thomas always was too decent for his own good. When he saw me step out of the shadows, his face went pale. Liz? I nodded. Hi. You're the one who bought the house. I had my reasons. He stared for a long second. Then, to my surprise, he pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't know how badly I needed that until he said it. We sat on overturned buckets behind the shed, just like we used to as kids. I told him everything, about the letter, the documents, Sophia, the footage. He was quiet until the very end. Then he asked, why would Dad protect Jacob? I shook my head. I don't know. But it's not just about Jacob. It's about Mom too. She's keeping secrets. He looked down at his hands. They act like if we just smile hard enough. Nothing's broken. I swallowed. It's been broken a long time, hasn't it? He didn't answer. The family secret wasn't just Jacob. Something deeper was being hidden. Over the next few days, Thomas and I worked together. He slipped me access to the house's security system through Dad's own login. We monitored the backdoor camera. We listened to snippets of conversations from smart speakers when they forgot to mute them. One night, we heard something chilling. Mom, whispering to Dad in the kitchen, she's going to find out. You should have destroyed those papers years ago. I couldn't. Just in case. In case of what, Mark? That she came back? She won't. She signed the agreement. You said she'd stay gone. I hoped she would. But hope doesn't protect us. Then, silence. I paused the recording. Who were they talking about? Who was she? There was another woman. A secret so big, my parents were willing to erase history. To keep it buried, the next day, I drove to the county records office. Used an alias. Paid in cash. I requested all documents associated with the Carter residence as births, marriages, property disputes, and then I saw a sealed file, marked 1996. Adoption records, confidential. I froze. The year I was born. I requested a notarized ID search. The clerk handed me a manila envelope and looked mildly apologetic. Good luck, he said. Inside were 2 forms. My birth certificate, and another. One that showed a different name listed for mother. Name, Catherine Ellis. No father listed. What the hell? I flipped to the back page. Adoption finalized at age 3. Which meant I wasn't Donna's biological daughter. I wasn't a Carter. I'd been adopted, and they never told me. I had lived a lie my entire life. I had never belonged. I confronted Thomas that night. He was pale as he read the file. They never told me either, he said quietly, but the look on his face said otherwise. You knew? I whispered. He didn't deny it. I overheard something when I was 15. I thought it didn't matter. You were our sister. You still are. I felt sick. It explained everything. Why they favored Nina, why I was always the afterthought, why Dad looked guilty every time he hugged me, and that woman they were whispering about. Was it Catherine? Was she back? I spent the next 48 hours hunting down Catherine Ellis. She had moved twice, but eventually, a friend in real estate found a record of her current address. Small coastal town. 2 hours away. I drove there the next morning. My hands were shaking when I rang the bell. A woman answered, early 60s. Same eyes as me. She looked stunned. Eliza? I choked. So it's true. She nodded slowly, then, softly, I didn't give you up because I wanted to. I was forced. Tears streamed down my face. She invited me. My birth mother had been blackmailed. We sat in her small kitchen as she poured tea with trembling hands. He said I'd ruin your life, she whispered. That no one would take a single mother seriously. That he'd make sure I lost my job, my apartment. He made me sign papers. Gave you to them. Who? She didn't answer. Catherine. Who did this to you? Her voice broke. Your grandfather. Mark's father. My chest seized. That man was evil, she said. When he died, I thought maybe I could find you. But the Carters changed their number. Moved. And when I finally found them again, your mother threatened me. Threatened.to stay away at to never contact me again, and I listened, because I thought maybe it was better for you. I thought they loved you. The betrayal hit me like a tidal wave. All these years, I wasn't just unloved, I had been stolen. I drove home in silence. The USB in my glove box suddenly felt like a weapon that night. I stood in the backyard, staring at their house. Their lights were on. Laughter spilled out from the windows. My mother, the woman who raised me, stood at the kitchen sink, washing dishes like nothing had happened. They had rewritten history, but I had the truth, and I wasn't staying silent anymore. I didn't leave my room for 2 days. I shut the blinds. Disconnected the doorbell. Let my phone battery die without charging it, and I just existed. Or tried to. Everything I thought I knew, my name, my blood, my family, was false. I wasn't a Carter. I wasn't even a sister. I was an inconvenient truth they had buried and smiled over, and now I couldn't stop thinking, was every moment of love a lie? Every hug, every "we're so proud of you," every birthday candle, had I always been a guest in someone else's home, loved conditionally? My body felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. I paced, I cried, I curled into myself on the floor, clutching the manila envelope like it held my last thread of identity, and somewhere in the spiral of silence, my mind wandered back. I had drawn a picture of our family, Mom, Dad, Nina, Thomas, and me. All of us smiling under a crooked sun. I'd given it to Mom after dinner, eager, beaming. She barely glanced at it. That's nice, sweetie, she said, stuffing it into a drawer with unpaid bills. I remember Nina coming down the stairs with a report card in her hand, straight as a Mom lit up. She pulled Nina into a hug so tight it lifted her off the floor. You make this family proud, she whispered, and I remember standing there, invisible. My picture still on the counter, ignored. Something had twisted in my chest then. A tiny fracture, but I told myself I was imagining it. I wasn't. Maybe I'd always known. On some buried level, love in our house was rationed. Measured. Conditional. I didn't even get to keep my name. I had been born as Eliza Ellis. But that name, that identity, had been stolen the moment Catherine was forced to sign the adoption papers, and they never told me. They let me grow up building loyalty to people who viewed me as temporary as long as I didn't rock the boat, as long as I stayed quiet, as long as I stayed grateful. Grateful for what? A lifetime of being overlooked, grateful that they erased my mother and made me a replacement piece in their perfect family puzzle? No. Not anymore. I remember standing in front of the mirror that night, staring at my reflection like I didn't recognize it, the dark circles, the bloodshot eyes, the cracked lips from too much crying. I looked hollow. I felt hollow. I tried to scream, but the sound got trapped in my throat. So I slammed the bathroom cabinet, once. Twice. Again, shattered glass scattered across the tile floor. My breath heaved, and then I crumpled, knees to chest, into the shards. I didn't even care if I bled. I wanted to feel something real. I wanted the silence inside me to scream. Later that night, Thomas knocked on my door, softly. Liz. Please open up. I know you're in there. I said nothing. I didn't want pity. I didn't want anyone. Then he added, you don't have to go through this alone. I'm still your brother. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. His words landed like a stone in my chest. By choice? I had been denied every choice, who I was, where I came from, what I was allowed to know. But now I had one. For the first time, I could choose to stop hiding, or I could burn everything down and finally force them to see me. I stood up, brushed glass from my legs, and looked in the mirror again, at the broken pieces of my face scattered like a mosaic. I'm not your mistake, I whispered, then louder, I'm not your mistake. I said it again. And again, until my voice broke, until I wasn't crying anymore, until I knew what I had to do next. The next morning, I cut my hair, nothing dramatic, just enough to feel like I was shedding something. I stared at the strands in the sink afterward like they were years of silence finally falling away. Then I got to work. The first thing I did was call Sophia. I'm ready, I told her. We're going to burn this to the ground. Her voice on the other end didn't flinch. Good. Because I have something you need to see. We met that night at her apartment. She handed me a black file folder and poured 2 glasses of wine. You remember how I said Jacob paid off some women? I nodded. Well, she said, turns out your family didn't just know about it, they orchestrated it. Inside the folder were wire transfers, legal gag orders, confidentiality agreements, all signed under Carter and Sons, the family law firm my dad had quietly folded into a trust 2 years ago. There was even one woman who had tried to go public, until someone from the Carter estate threatened to release private medical records if she didn't back off. My stomach twisted. Dad did this? I whispered. Sophia nodded. He protected Jacob. Covered up multiple affairs, harassment claims, and hush money. All for the sake of preserving the Carter legacy. Legacy. That word again. I suddenly remembered him saying it at a family dinner once. We're Carters. We protect the brand. Brand, not family and not people. That AF *** King brand. That was when the plan clicked into place. They wanted perfection. I would show them everything they buried, and I would do it on their stage, but I needed help. So I called Catherine, my real mother. She picked up on the second ring. I need you, I said, and for once in my life, a mother said, I'm here. She arrived 2 days later, carrying an old photo album and something else, an envelope with a worn-out seal. Letters I wrote you every birthday, she said, placing it in my hands. Even though I had no address to send them to. I didn't open them right away. I couldn't, but I held them close. Like they were the first real proof that I had been loved, wanted, by someone who wasn't trying to control me. We talked 4 hours. About why she never married, why she stayed quiet for so long. I thought if I showed up again, they'd hurt you, she said. I thought maybe you were better off not knowing. I shook my head. I wasn't. Later that night, I showed her the Carter Christmas card photo, the one where they replaced me with a golden retriever and a decorative wreath. Catherine stared at it for a long time, then she asked, do they still host that annual charity gala? I blinked. Every year. At the family estate. She raised an eyebrow. Well, she said. Let's buy tickets, Brain Mentor introduced, Catherine. The biological mother becomes the emotional anchor and advisor. The next week was a blur of planning. I called in favors from college friends, dug through public court records, reached out to 2 of the women Jacob had silenced. One of them, Monica, agreed to talk on one condition, she said. If you fall, you don't drag me with you. I won't fall, I told her, but I wasn't so sure. The Carter family had a reputation. They were revered, politically connected, and ruthless in their PR. If I was going to expose them, it had to be airtight. So I started compiling a file, photos, emails, bank transfers, video clips, testimony. Sophia even installed a backdoor into the Carter firm server through an old employee login. It felt like espionage. It was espionage, only difference was, this time, I had truth on my side. The night before the gala, I sat in my living room, staring at the invitation. Gold embossed the annual Carter Foundation Gala. Honoring family, legacy, and truth. The irony nearly made me laugh out loud. Thomas came over that evening. He had been quiet since our last conversation, but I could see the weight in his eyes. I'll back you, he said simply. You sure? I asked. This might mean walking away from them. For good. He nodded. I already did the math. I'd rather stand next to truth than sit in their lies. We arrived at the estate separately. Sophia wore black. Monica wore red. Catherine walked in at my side like a queen returning from exile. Eyes turned, whispers started, but I kept my chin up. I was no longer a shadow at the edge of their frame. Tonight, I was center stage. Power shift begins. Eliza is no longer hiding, she's orchestrating. The gala was just as lavish as I remembered. Crystal chandeliers. Champagne flutes. A jazz trio humming in the corner. Nina smiled as she greeted donors. Jacob looked smug in his tux. My father, calm, proud, stood near the podium. I watched him give his opening remarks. Tonight is about honoring truth, integrity, and the Carter name. Truth, I thought that we'll see about that today. The applause died down. I walked up to the event coordinator, someone I knew from high school, and handed her a thumb drive. Play this. Now. She hesitated. I can't just, trust me. I said. You'll want to. She slid it into the laptop near the projector and then. The room went silent, the screen lit up. First, a photo of the Carter family Christmas card, with me missing, then, the adoption papers, then, a video, Jacob arguing with a woman in a parking lot, followed by bank records, then, audio of Mom and Dad whispering about erasing the past, then, my voice, narrating it all. My name is Eliza Ellis. You may know me as Elizabeth Carter. But that name was given to me after I was taken from my real mother and raised in a house built on image, lies, and betrayal. Tonight, I'm telling the truth. Not to ruin a family, but to reclaim my place in one. Gasps, whispers, someone dropped a glass. I looked toward my parents. My father stood frozen and my mother's face had gone sheet white. Nina stared at me like I had become a ghost, and Jacob? He stormed toward the stage. You vindictive little b****, tch, security blocked him. Then Monica stood up from the crowd and said, loud and clear, she's telling the truth. Sophia added, we have records. Then Thomas stepped forward and said, you lied to all of us. And it ends tonight. Firecracker momentum turns. Allies emerge. Power consolidates. Catherine joined me at the microphone. She didn't say a word, she didn't have to. Her presence was a thunderclap. I took the mic and looked into the crowd. I was never missing from the family photo, I said. I was erased. And now. I'm rewriting the story. The air in the ballroom crackled. The NO music. No chatter. Just the low buzz of the paused projector and 100 eyes staring at the unraveling Carter empire. Me, I stood under the spotlight like I'd been waiting my whole life to step into ITMY. Hands trembled, but not from fear. It was power, the kind I had begged for, cried for, been denied my whole life, and now, it was mine. Behind me, on the massive screen, the final image flickered, a photo of me as a child. Holding a crayon drawing of a family. Smiling, still waiting to be chosen, I took the mic again. My voice was soft, but it cut through the silence like glass. They told me family was forever. That blood didn't matter, that love did. But what they meant was, love us, or leave. Obey us, or vanish. I turned slowly, first to my mother. She stood motionless, her champagne flute trembling in her grip. You looked me in the eye for 25 years, I said, and never once told me I wasn't yours. Because you were mine, she whispered. I raised you, didn't I? I fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. I stepped forward, no. You gave me conditions. Silence. A seat at the table, as long as I didn't ask where I came from. Her voice rose. What was I supposed to do? Say, hey, honey, your birth mother is a waitress in Missouri and we only took you in because we were afraid she'd go public with your father's affair. Gasps rippled. My jaw clenched. So it's true. She realized her mistake too late. I turned to my father. You told everyone here this family stands for a truth and legacy. Is this the truth you meant? His expression cracked for the first time. Eliza, this isn't the place, no? I said. Why not? Because. It's your fundraiser? Because the lights are too bright? Because the cameras are rolling? My voice echoed louder now. You were all fine rewriting history as long as it suited your narrative. But now the truth's on a screen and suddenly you want privacy? He stepped toward me, quiet, stern, almost pitying. You're angry. I get it. But this stunt, this is beneath you. Stunt? I laughed, sharp, bitter. This isn't a stunt. This is justice. Then I turned to Jacob, who was now seated, flanked by two silent security guards. You made a career out of hurting women behind closed doors. Your wife covered it. Your parents paid for it. I was raised in a house built on your rot. And guess what, big brother? I walked toward him slowly. You're done. He spat. You think anyone's going to take you seriously after this? You're a nobody with a grudge and a camera. Maybe, I said. But I also have the police report. Monica filed last year. The hush money. The email Sophia intercepted. And the woman you threatened in Chicago, she's here tonight. Gasps again, Jacob turned pale. Just then, the double doors opened. A detectives. Two of them, quiet. Polite. Holding a warrant, I stepped aside. They walked straight to Jacob. Jacob Carter, one said. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, and unlawful coercion under State Code 13B 105. Handcuffs clicked. He didn't fight. Didn't speak, just glared at me with the fire of a man who realized the world no longer feared him. I didn't flinch. Then came the moment I hadn't planned for. Nina, she walked up, trembling, voice tight with disbelief. You just ruined our entire family. I looked her dead in the eye. No. I exposed it. Her face twisted. You don't get it. You never did. You always thought being ignored meant being unloved. But you were spared, Eliza. You didn't have to carry the pressure we did. You were the backup plan, free to chase your dreams while the rest of us held up the brand. Tears prickled my eyes. So I was disposable? No, she snapped. You were replaceable. And you just proved it. I shook my head, heart shattering again, differently this time. I didn't want to replace anyone. I just wanted the truth. I wanted to belong. She stared for a long beat. Then turned away. You never will, she whispered. I turned to my father again, and for the first time, he looked small, broken. Is it true? I asked. Was Catherine just your mistress? He nodded. Slowly, it was one mistake. One. And your mother and I agreed, we'd raise you as our own. But it got complicated. You started asking questions. And we were afraid you'd go looking for her. So you erased her. We protected you. No, I said. You protected yourselves. I stepped back and looked out at the crowd. Everyone here knows what it's like to feel unseen. To wonder if you matter. To fight for a place at the table. I swallowed hard. They taught me that family is earned. That blood doesn't matter. But if that's true, then why did they spend so much time hiding mine? Applause began, first hesitant, then thunderous. Sophia stood up, then Catherine, then Thomas, and for the first time, I felt something I hadn't in years seen. Later, as the guests filtered out, the damage was done. The press would tear the Carters apart by morning. Their donors? Gone. The foundation? Under investigation. But me, I stood in the ruins of the empire that tried to erase me, and I finally felt real. The estate would be liquidated in the fallout. Lawsuits. Tax fraud. Collateral damage, but I had already planned ahead. 3 weeks later, I signed the final deed. A small house, just across the hill, behind the crumbling Carter mansion, with a clear view of their back porch, and their newly retaken family photo. Now awkwardly propped in a silver frame with a fresh gap in the middle. A space they couldn't fill anymore. I bought the house behind them, not out of spite, but to remind them you don't get to erase people and move on like nothing happened. Some of us come back, some of us write ourselves back into the picture, and I'd be right here, living freely. Authentically. No more pretending, no more silence, no more empty smiles, just me, Eliza Ellis, the name they tried to bury, but I dug it up, and I built my whole damn life on it. It's strange, the way silence feels different when you're no longer afraid of it. In the Carter house, silence meant danger. A judgment. A withheld smile. A conversation you weren't invited to, but here, in my little sun-drenched kitchen. Just past the hill, silence feels like peace, like safety, like mine. And it's been 8 months since that night at the gala. 8 months since I told the truth out loud. Since Jacob was let out in handcuffs. Since the Carter name stopped being a gilded cage and started becoming just a name. I'd love to say they apologized, but that's not how stories like this end. Instead, there were carefully worded statements. To the press, we are cooperating with the investigation. We deeply regret any past oversights. We will be taking time as a family to heal privately. They even hired a crisis PR team. It didn't work. Monica and 2 others filed formal complaints. The law firm Dad absorbed was dissolved by court order. Donations dried up. Nina quietly moved out of state with her fiancé. Someone told me they canceled their wedding, and the Carter estate, listed for sale, they dropped the price 3 times that it's still sitting empty. A hollow monument to curated perfection. Sometimes I walk past it just to feel the stillness. Other times, I don't need to, because from my living room window, I can see their old garden, where I used to play hide and seek with a girl I thought was my sister, where we buried a dead bird together when we were 6 and cried like it was a funeral, where I once asked my mother why I didn't look like anyone in our family, and she said, "That's just how genetics work, sweetie." But now, I know better. Catherine lives down the street that we see each other almost every day, and it's been awkward, beautiful, healing. She brings me fresh baked cookies. I help her with her garden. She tells me stories about the year I was born, about how she used to sing to her belly. She kept a journal back then. Gave it to me on my birthday. I didn't get to be there for your first steps, she said. But maybe I can be there for the rest. Sometimes I still get angry. For the time we lost. For the silence she let happen, but anger is quieter now. It doesn't burn. It just reminds that I'm still rebuilding, still healing, still here. Sophia and I started a podcast. Yeah, I know. Me. A podcast, but people listened. That we called it The Rewritten Ones. Every week, we bring on someone who's been erased, silenced, pushed out of the frame, and let them tell their story. That we had Monica on. And a girl from a political dynasty who ran away at 17. And an ex-cult survivor who's now a yoga teacher in Arizona. It's raw. It's real. It's messy, and it's the most alive I've ever felt. As for Thomas, he comes by often. Brings coffee. Fixes things that aren't really broken. Leaves his jacket on my couch like he wants it to belong there. We haven't defined anything, but sometimes he takes my hand without saying a word, and that's enough for now. The last time I saw my adoptive parents, they were sitting outside a courtroom, waiting for Jacob's sentencing. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother did. Just for a second, her face looked like it had aged 10 years and 8 months. Her lipstick was perfect, as always. But her eyes were empty. She said, "You got what you wanted." I looked at her and said, softly, "No. I lost what I thought I had." She opened her mouth to respond, then stopped, and I walked away. There's something freeing about realizing you don't need revenge to feel powerful. Sometimes, justice looks like a prison sentence. Sometimes, it's a house on a hill with no ghosts in the walls. Sometimes, it's just waking up and choosing your own name. Eliza Ellis. I like the way it sounds now. Yesterday, I found the old family photo in a box. The one without me in it. I stared at it for a long time, then I took a pen and drew myself in right there in the middle, smiling. Not because I needed their acceptance anymore, but because I've accepted myself. They say you can't choose your family, but you can choose who you become because of them, and I choose to be the girl who came back not for their love, but for my truth. So here's my question for you. If you're still listening, what picture did the world try to erase you from, and are you ready to draw yourself back in? Because your story doesn't end with silence. It begins with voice. So use it, and while you're here, like, comment, subscribe, because somewhere out there, someone else needs to hear that they're not invisible. Not replaceable. Not broken, just rewriting.